and thank you for tuning in to Starting Small. Today, I'm joined by Ryan of Homage. Ryan, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure.
Yeah, so to kick things off, I'd like to start out with your upbringing. Where did you grow up, and what would you say your childhood was like?
So I was born in Columbus in the 80s. Grew up in a community called Berwick, which is on the east side of town. And as a kid, I went to Montessori school. My mom always jokes that I am who I am because of Montessori school.
Yeah.
But I don't know, the jury's still out on that one. Childhood was great, full of playing sports. I had a pretty tight group of friends and still friends with today. Some of them I work with actually, which is a whole other story.
Wow.
Um, Went to high school at Columbus Academy, got a great education there. It set me up for things to come, I think.
Yeah.
And went to college at Ohio University, which is in Athens, Ohio. So
Hmm.
it's about 90 minutes from Columbus.
Yeah.
My dad went there, and I just love the campus. It's beautiful. It's famous for many things, including a pretty raucous Halloween party that takes place every fall. Um, Studied Spanish there,
Mm,
which is a lot of people are surprised to learn that, but I always
yeah.
just loved to learn Spanish. It was like a puzzle trying to figure it out and learn how to speak it, write it, read it, all that stuff.
Mm,
Um, yeah, and then graduated from OU in 2005,
mm,
and kind of towards the end of college, I started my first business, which was selling vintage on eBay,
mm.
which
Vintage,
kind of
vintage clothing, or
vintage clothing, whatever I
yeah.
could get my hands on. I would comb thrift stores all over the state of Ohio,
Mm,
and if something looked cool and collectible, I would buy it, and
yeah.
then I would put it online. Some stuff would sell, some stuff would not, but you never know until you tried.
Yeah.
And it turns out running a little eBay business is a precursor of things to come because you've got inventory and shipping and
Mm,
customer service and stuff that can apply to a business of any kind, really. So
yeah. For sure. So, I mean, going to Ohio, studying Spanish at that time, where was your mindset at? Like, what did you want to do post graduation? I'm curious.
yeah, good question. I think I've always felt entrepreneurial, and I knew that I would start a company of some kind. Used to really be into computers,
Mm,
and so I thought I would do something related to technology, and just kind of just went with the flow. One thing led to another. Graduated from college, actually, um, was working at the Apple Store for a
mm,
minute. That was
nice.
that was pretty cool. That was a great
Yeah.
experience. And just continued with this eBay business, this vintage business, because I was having success with it. I was having fun with it. Um, and just one thing led to another, and I eventually started Homage.
Wow. Very cool. So, I mean, you mentioned at the beginning some of your friends are working with you now. Now, I'm curious what that founding looked like. Were those friends with you at the beginning, or what did that beginning of Homage look like?
Some are and some are not. Lots of interesting lessons
Yeah.
that you can take from working with friends. Some of the guys that are still with me, one, Elliot, is our director of licensing.
Mm-hmm.
He's an extraordinary partnership maker.
Mm-hmm.
And another childhood friend is Steve, our CFO.
Okay.
So, and then lots of people that work at Homage are, from Columbus and kind of from the same community. So, it's been an interesting ride.
Yeah.
This is year 17. Hard to
Wow.
believe. I'm not sure where the time goes, but
Yeah.
here we are.
It's incredible. So, kind of taking that inspiration from selling vintage at that time, but then at what point did Homage become Homage at making that first shirt for say? What did that look like? And you wanted to start your own shirts then at that point.
Yeah, I think with vintage, I was really only as good as the next find. So
Yeah.
like once you sold something, it's like, okay, I have no more inventory. What am I going to do? So you're always on the hunt.
Yeah.
And with vintage, it's can be hit or miss. So you can not find anything for a while.
Mm,
And I think I just realized that the thing that was the coolest was selling some kind of story on a shirt. And
yeah.
I really was drawn into, like a championship game or like a vintage Chuck E. Cheese shirt or just something from my childhood and
Mm,
wondered like oh, would somebody buy this new? Because the vintage version would be like medium or
Yeah,
extra small or triple X. Like it was a unique size for a unique person,
for
and
sure.
so you only had one, and so I thought to myself, maybe I should try to make more of these, and let's see if I can attract more customers.
Mhm. So, what did that look like? I mean, those first round of shirts, for example, like, what were those designs? And I mean, you weren't licensing at that point yet, were you? Or I'm curious.
Well, I was actually.
Oh wow.
So, yeah, so I was able to get some licenses for some Ohio colleges
Mm,
that are a bit easier to obtain.
yeah.
And so I cut my teeth um, just in the licensing world, learning how to fill out applications and pay for licenses and submit artwork and fill out royalty reports. And,
Mhm.
it was a great practice for the things to come because obviously, when you start working with the NBA and the NFL, you have to have
Yeah.
in Disney, you have to have insurance and like factory audits and things that are a bit more complicated. So I'm actually grateful to those early experiences with places like Kent State, Bowling Green, Ohio U, where I went, just because I was able to learn so much about licensing that I could
Mm,
apply to, partnerships down the line.
yeah. At that first round of T-shirts, where did you source those shirts? And then also, was it those local schools you just did a batch of inventory and hoped to sell those, or was it one on one, on demand? What was that like?
So, from my vintage days, I always knew what kind of shirt would be awesome
Yeah.
to offer. And it was like this tri-blend t-shirt, cotton poly rayon blend that, companies like Russell Athletic would make in the 80s.
Mm,
And right around the same time, American Apparel started offering that tri-blend shirt blank.
mm,
So, American Apparel would sell to distribution channels. And so people like me with a vendor's license could call up the distributor, excuse me,
yep.
and um, and just place an order. So I would order blank tees, and then I would submit designs for approval to the colleges, and then I would take the
Mm,
blanks over to a local screen printer, and they would run batches of 24, 36, 48.
yeah.
Shout out to my original screen printer back in the day for doing those small runs, because I look back and like screen printers usually don't want to do a run of 36 because
Yeah.
there isn't a ton of money in that. So I had a lot of help getting started over the years. People were really nice and did a lot of things to help me get started. So
Mm,
that's one of the reasons why we are where we are today.
yeah.
But I would try to go to college bookstores in some of those cities and sell the designs to the bookstores with mixed success. I think our price point was a little high at the time
Mm,
because we were selling this premium kind of 30 $35 t-shirt, and the bookstore buyers had never seen something priced like that. So
mm,
I remember one story with a particular bookstore buyer that kind of thought I was selling bootleg shirts because
mm.
she didn't think that I had gotten the license, and that was a whole other funny story. But in the beginning, this idea of premium college t-shirts, just it was kind of, it was new.
Yeah.
Like most t-shirts were priced much lower. There was one other brand that I remember called Chip and Pepper that was doing these like $60 really premium high-end tees for boutiques,
Mm,
but there was nothing kind of in that middle space
yeah.
between kind of your 1999 bookstore tee and then that $60 tee. So I kind of realized like maybe if I was persistent, I could get this $30 price point tee to click.
Yeah. So at what point was that turning point? Was it the bookstores that you found you were able to sell at the beginning? I know you had that funny story with that one guy, but where were you able to sell at that price point then eventually?
So there was a retailer called Dr. Mojo in Columbus in the short north, and produced these really simple T-shirts that just said Ohio in different colors.
Mhm.
And I remember like one Saturday morning, the first 10 customers in the door at this is a premium denim boutique, so this is like a fashion boutique. But
Got
the
it.
first 10 customers on that Saturday morning were there to buy this classic Ohio tee. And so then the manager of that store called me and he's like, I need a reorder. Like, you're not going to believe what just happened. So I think that day we sold like 50 or 60,
Mm,
and we were just off to the races. So there was just kind of like this instant validation from that boutique
Yeah.
in Columbus that fall, and then just kept working it, just kept trying to figure out how to get more inventory. Didn't have a credit line,
Mm.
so I was ordering blanks from the distributor, the American Apparel blanks, using
Yep.
a credit card, and the credit card limit was like $1,500, and so then I maxed that out pretty quickly, and then I had to wait to get paid from the boutique.
Mm.
So then I talked to the distributor and explained my situation, and he gave me a little bit of a credit line. So remember
Wow.
how I said there's all these people kind of in your
Helping.
helping along the way in your journey. Well, there's
Yeah.
this this guy AJ from TSC Apparel. Shout out AJ for the credit line.
That's incredible. So
Yeah,
so starting out with mainly the local Ohio shirts, I'm curious, at what point did you expand, or at what line did you find was like this was a real jumping point for Homage? I mean, those Ohio
yeah,
they performed well at the beginning, but I'm curious.
yeah. So just uh, with this particular store, I realized that I wanted to do more than what they were willing to do.
Mm.
So what I mean by that is I wanted to control more of the ambiance. I wanted to play a certain music in my mind. I wanted to have a certain decor, and I recognized that I was only going to be really like one shelf in that store. And so then
Yeah.
I decided that in order to gain more control of the customer experience and the brand experience, I was going to have to open my own store.
Mm.
So in 2010, we opened a small shop kind of in an alley in the short north. The street was called Brickell Alley.
Mhm.
And it was a small space. I want to say maybe like 1,000 feet, give or
Mm.
take. And it was just super fun because we got to find old sports posters, old displays. There was a vintage Coke machine. There was an NBA Jam machine. Like
Mm.
I could just take all these fun things and put them together to create the Homage brand experience that, you know, frankly, I was never going to have inside someone else's store. So
Yeah.
I think once we could articulate Homage in a very unique way, that's when the brand really started to take off because then people
Mm.
could feel what the brand was about.
Yeah. At that point, when you moved into that location, were you still on mainly the Ohio-based shirts, or what did that expansion look like on what you guys were manufacturing?
Yeah, so for the first several years, we were pretty much all Ohio. I mean,
Mhm.
I thought long and hard about the name and realized that something like Homage would give us the opportunity to eventually do other things.
Mm.
So I knew that I didn't want to do just Ohio stuff, but I wasn't really prepared to figure out how to tackle that problem. So a name
Yeah.
like Homage is really versatile. Turns out you can pay homage to anything, which
Yeah.
is a blessing. Um, but yeah, I really stuck to Ohio for a while, and periodically we would do other things not related to Ohio sports because we had a website. It was homageclothing.com. That was our
Mm.
first domain, and just kept plugging away at it. And then there was a big turning point in 2015 when we were able to convince the NBA to work with us. The
Mm.
Cavs the Cavs had just won a championship, I think 2016 around that time, and um, the NBA realized that there were a lot of companies that were creating product that sort of looked like NBA product but wasn't actually licensed. So we were able to convince the NBA that if they would enable a partner like us,
Mm.
we could do similar product that looked cool and hyper local, but it actually earned them a royalty.
I see. Yeah, so leading up to that, what did that relationship look like, and how did that come about? I'm curious.
Well, I mentioned Elliot, our licensing director. He is very persistent,
Yeah.
um, and I think just kept a great dialogue going with the NBA and found an opportunity and an opening. I would say one consistent theme as it pertains to really anything in
Mhm.
this journey is that we have to find some small white space opportunity
Mm. Yeah.
where there isn't somebody else currently doing that, because it's a lot easier to go to these partners and say, hey, we want to do this, and they're interested because none of their current partners are doing it. But if you point to something that's already being done,
Mm.
they're not likely to bring you on as a partner. So
Yeah.
I think with the NBA, it was just like, hey, we want to do really cool hyperlocal graphics. You don't have a partner for it, so let us take a
Mm.
crack at it.
Love it. At what point, so this is like the 2010s. At what point did you guys maybe see a shift where you're really utilizing the website more, maybe switching D2C? Because I know you're based in this Ohio location for a while, but at what point in there did you guys expand away from that location and then move on, maybe D2C or even other locations?
Well, we actually tried to scale both at the same time and
Okay.
learn some valuable lessons along the way. I think at one point in my career, I thought, wow, we could have a store in every city. It turns out that is very complicated logistically and operationally.
Yeah.
So we were actually growing both at the same time. So we expanded to a second location in Columbus at a lifestyle shopping center called Easton, and that was a much different type of store. And then we also opened up stores in Cleveland and Cincinnati. But the thing with Ohio product and specifically Ohio State product is that you have a national fan base. You have fans all over. So
Yeah.
turns out that while we only had the Ohio State license pre-NBA, we were
Mhm.
shipping a lot of packages all over the country. And so I
Yeah.
think in hindsight, that was actually a great customer acquisition strategy to expand nationally. I always thank Ohio
Mm.
State for really giving me that first opportunity to tell a national story.
Yeah. For sure. At what point did you find the NBA, for example? What shirt was that kind of ignited? I would say sales. I know Larry Bird. You kind of dive into that one. I love that design on the site too. Um, but what kind of
Yeah.
shirts were performing well at that time?
Well, the Larry Bird story is funny because I was doing a shirt that said Larry Legend. This is pre-NBA, and
Okay.
I got a cease and desist letter from his manager,
Oh wow.
and I said, "Well, I'm a huge Larry Bird fan. Like, is there any chance that we could get a license?" And she said, "Sure, that'd be fine." Turns out
Oh
this
wow.
this this person Jill is wonderful and said that she had known Larry her whole life.
Mm.
That she picked up Larry at the airport when he was drafted. He was wearing overalls, so she was great to work with. So
Wow.
we got the Larry Bird license, and then a funny story about that is one day I was looking at online banking and I was looking at checks as they had been endorsed, and Larry Bird had endorsed this, like, I don't know, $400 royalty check,
Mm.
and I had a good laugh because usually star athletes are not the ones to be endorsing
Yeah.
their own royalty check, but Larry is a unique person,
So
and
cool.
yeah, that was definitely a fun one.
So cool. I mean, I would love to dive into collaborations, and if there is a Larry story with that too, I'd love to jump into that. But what does that look like working on maybe that next collaboration and maybe new Larry shirts as well? Has he ever worked on a shirt with you guys?
We haven't specifically engaged him for a design that he's been a part of,
Mhm.
but now that you bring that up, maybe it's time to circle back with Larry and see
That'd be
what's
cool.
cooking. Maybe there's something new we can figure out. But
Yeah.
collaborations are now taking on a totally different and amazing lens. I would say something that I'm seeing consistently is the opportunity to blend some popular culture with sports.
Mm.
So I think coming out tomorrow, we've got an NFL Tasmanian Devil,
Mm.
a collaboration.
Awesome.
Um, and a couple weeks ago we launched Ninja Turtles NFL.
Mm.
So collaborations can mean any number of things, right? I mean, like, you could, in theory, if we released a couple of shirts with Larry Bird, that would be a Larry Bird homage collab. But
Yeah.
the collabs that we're doing now really have an opportunity to be seen by a wide variety of people because we're taking such iconic IP and we're blending it together,
Yeah.
especially with sports IP, and then we're able to take it to NFL shop or NBA shop, or even the individual team store buyers that buy
Mm.
for the arenas and stadiums all over the country. So
Yeah.
there's so much opportunity ahead. One of the challenges, I think, is coming up with a new go-to-market strategy,
Mm.
because, like, it's a different skill set, I would say, to work on a Ninja Turtle collaboration that you might spend 5 to 6 months developing
Yeah.
versus you get an email and someone's like, "Hey, we're doing something really cool next month or 2 months from now. Like, any chance you could move quickly
Mm.
and collab with us?" And so there's all this inbound, and so it's kind of hard to figure out, like, what we should say yes to and what we should say no to, because we
Yeah.
can't do everything. And so, I think every day the word collaboration truly takes on new meaning.
That makes sense. You're certainly blending like a really unique audience with kind of nostalgic, pop culture, trending. I'm curious, what marketing overall would you say works best for Homage over the years?
That's an interesting question. I think um, word of mouth has been a tremendous driver. I'm
Mm,
of the belief that if you can deliver a great customer experience, so for example, an order is placed, it's shipped promptly, and it arrives quickly to the customer, and the packaging experience is fun,
mm,
someone's going to really, really enjoy the Homage brand experience, and then they're likely to tell a friend.
mm,
And that could be just like a regular face-to-face conversation. It might be a tweet, might be a post. So word of mouth has been a really powerful driver for us over the years. Obviously, as the business has grown and we've become more sophisticated and analytical, we're doing a lot with paid media to acquire new customers. I mean,
mm.
definitely with fandom being what it is, you can target Chiefs fans
Yep,
anywhere they are as long as they're on a device. So,
yep.
certainly digital marketing is an essential part of our playbook, but I've always believed in delivering really extraordinary experiences and then get people talking about them and then they will do the work for you.
Mm. Yeah, with some of that feedback, what would you say overall is that primary customer for Homage? I know it's probably very widespread, but I'm curious.
It's really diverse.
Yeah,
I think you can break it down from a data perspective, say, you know, 20 to 44,
yeah.
is kind of your sweet spot. But, you know, I see reviews and I see interactions with people really of all ages, from high
Mm,
school to, people in their 60s and 70s. I think people gravitate to Homage for different reasons, but the core reason is the storytelling and the authenticity that comes across with the graphic. I mean, certainly having a great
mm,
fitting t-shirt is a part of it, right? I mean, people
yeah.
wear comfortable clothing, but I think the way that we present stories and tell stories is of interest to people, and that's what brings them in. And
Mm,
so because we have so many subject matters across the site, from Disney and Marvel to NBA to MLB to pop culture and NFL, we're going to attract a
mm.
wide variety of people who have all kinds of different fandoms.
Yeah, for sure. So jumping into today, I know you guys successfully just closed on actually a funding round. I'd like to get into that a little bit. A lot of notable investors, but maybe some from your point of view, what are some of those growth plans with the funding round, and how long was that round open as well?
So, we've announced that we've partnered with Maximum Effort.
Mhm.
That was announced early this year, but this round that I think you're alluding to is our follow-on round, which we're
Yeah.
getting ready to announce. So we brought on some really interesting partners. Haslam Sports Group,
Mm,
owners of the Crew and the Browns, and part owner of the Bucks. Um,
incredible.
Wheelhouse Media, which is a roll-up of different production companies. They've produced all kinds of amazing content that you know you see on Netflix and Hulu.
Mhm.
Um, Adam Hansman is the co-founder of
Mm,
The Athletic.
yeah,
Um, 35 Ventures, which is Kevin Durant and Rich Kleiman.
incredible.
Super excited to have them on board. I think there's somebody I'm forgetting. Oh, how could I forget? Jason
Kelsey?
Kelsey.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Awesome.
we have been working with Jason in a variety of ways the last year on different projects, and so I think just getting a sense of what it's like to work with us and what kind of partner he could be back to us just made a lot of sense, and there's
Mm,
great chemistry, and so I'm really excited to have him and everybody else in the round. I would
mm,
say the thing that I'm really interested in, and this has been a lifelong passion of mine. I've talked about it enough with my team. They're probably sick of hearing about it, but I always talk about how can we be more than just an apparel company? How can we be a true storytelling platform? And so
mm,
it's a really natural progression to content. So
yeah.
building this really strong group of advisors to help us think through not just content, but also what does content mean for Homage?
Mm,
Because that word is kind of loaded, right? It could mean any
yeah.
any number of things, but to really think about like how we can tell stories and use that as a means of attracting new customers into the
Mm,
Homage ecosystem, and just trying to blend content and commerce in a
mm,
really unique,
yeah.
novel way.
Love it. So looking back at maybe your recent launches or historically as well, what would you say, just kind of closing out here, is that top seller, top performing piece of apparel, unless it's a mix of them? I'm curious.
Well, there's these really interesting kind of micro moments that happen that are totally unpredictable.
That makes sense.
So obviously, like those original Ohio shirts that I alluded to earlier, we've sold a lot over the
Yeah,
years, and just when I think every person that I know owns an Ohio shirt, there's always more people who want an Ohio shirt, which it's
yeah,
a timeless design and just can mean so many things to so many different people.
for
But
sure.
something like the Ultimate Warrior situation.
Mm,
LeBron got off the plane after the Cavs came back from being down 3-1 to Golden State, so
mm,
he's wearing this our WWE licensed Ultimate Warrior shirt, and so suddenly we're selling thousands of those, and we ran out of
mm,
blue inventory, and that was crazy. And then
yeah,
um, another instance is like I don't know if you remember the Aaron Rodgers off season from a couple years ago about his, there was some lots of discussion around his contract
yeah,
and would he report to training camp? And so he walks into training camp wearing one of our office
mm,
jam shirts, and so that caused quite a stir. So
yeah,
we've been a part of these sort of really wild, unpredictable moments that turn into big selling moments, but
mm,
you never really you can't plan those. They just
yeah,
happen. Um, I think product wise, into the future, I'm really excited about our Pay Homage series, which
mm,
takes iconic photographs and licenses them and puts them on tees. Photo
very cool.
tees were really popular a couple of years ago, and it's not like they haven't become not popular, but I think it's awesome to go through
Mm,
these libraries like Getty Images
yeah,
or the Associated Press and find just like a beautiful photo that either is iconic and people recognize or a photo that's beautiful and people don't recognize. And so
yeah,
we with this new series, we have the ability to bring those back on tees. And
so cool.
so we have the photo and then it says pay homage underneath. And so it's like just a little subtle
Mm,
thing from us on the front, but really to let the image speak for itself.
love it.
So yeah, lots of fun ideas in the hopper, just sorting it out and
Yeah,
getting really clear on everything will be the exercise to tackle in the future.
love it. So I know you mentioned earlier. I mean, a shirt it can take 4 to 5 months to kind of come from ideation or quicker even. But what does that look like once an idea comes? How what does that process kind of look like on making that next shirt? Because you can hop on a virality trend, I feel like as well, and take that moment, like these micro moments you mentioned, or miss it if you're too slow. So what does that process kind of look like coming up with a new shirt?
It's a real like it's a great question because as we've grown, it's really hard to chase everything.
Yeah.
Um, because like you said, if we're too slow, if like it takes us 4 or 5 days to get something out, then we've kind of
Mm,
missed the moment.
yeah.
So, a great example of that is just from the Olympics.
Mm,
The gold winning team, LeBron nicknamed them the Avengers, and we're like, oh man, we've got to do something with that. And so
yep.
we're like poking around trying to figure out how we can speak to the moment. And
Mm,
like a couple weeks goes by, and we finally figure out that I think December 71. Don't quote me on that, but December 71 is the cover of the Avengers is in front of the Eiffel Tower. And
mm,
so we're like, oh, that's the image. And but then I'm like, well, we've kind of missed the moment. So
yeah.
you've got to be really fast.
Mm,
And to be honest, when you're working with licensed IP,
yeah.
not everybody like it's people. It takes time to approve
Yeah.
artwork. So you might not get approval for a day or
Mm,
two or three, and then by then you've kind of missed the moment. So
yeah.
in the sports world, given that we you know partner with MLS, NBA, NFL, MLB, like there's something going on
Mm,
every season, almost every day of the week. And so
yeah.
the exercise for us will be deciding what we chase and what we don't chase.
Mm, for
Like,
sure.
and you might we have to put in some internal filtering. Like, you'd say, okay, so if Aaron Judge breaks the record, are we going to try to speak to that? Like, is that a significant enough or monumental enough moment that we would chase? Or
Mm,
is an Olympic gold medal something that you would want to chase?
yeah.
Or, something whimsical, like was there something crazy that happened the night before, like maybe a wild fan does something. Like we
Mm,
can't, as we grow, I've had to learn that we can't chase everything, and so we're going to
yeah,
have to be more disciplined and methodical. But
for sure.
I definitely miss those days when we were really small and nimble and we could chase everything.
No, for sure. Well, I like to wrap up each episode with this. If you could share one piece of advice with an aspiring entrepreneur, maybe something you've learned or regret along the way, what would you say that would be?
I would say that if you can find a mentor, somebody who is older, who's been through some stuff,
Mm,
who can see around corners, find that person or people and get them in your court, meet
mm,
with them in whatever cadence makes sense. But, when you're just starting, you're kind of riding high and you think you can do no wrong, and you just like you don't know what to look for.
yeah.
Like you haven't made a mistake. And
Mm,
suddenly you make a mistake and you're like, now what?
yep.
And having, an advisory group doesn't have to be necessarily like a fiduciary board, right? Because
Mm,
not everyone's raising capital and looking to
yeah.
scale as quickly, but try to find a group of advisors, even if it's just one advisor, somebody who's been there, done that to guide you and mentor you. Like I've had
Mm,
those people in my life, and they've shaped my journey in so many ways that
mm,
I and so as a result, I'm trying to mentor young founders, try to help them see around corners and avoid some of the
mm,
pitfalls and mistakes that I've made, because there's some pretty painful mistakes along the way. And so
I'm
if I can
sure.
help somebody else avoid those, then I'm happy to, because it's just a way of
Mm,
paying it forward. A lot of people did a lot of nice things for me. So
yeah.
just like I said, just trying to pay it forward if I can.
Love it. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for taking the time. And to the listeners out there, make sure to check out Homage at homage.com.